Just want to give everybody a chance to be seated, and if you have any questions, just go ahead and give us a finger, a hand up, just to Vanport. But yeah, I just want to thank you, Isaka, for everything, for giving me an opportunity to hang out with you and run the streets and do what I do. And you've been able to provide something for all of us for generations to come. And like the proclamation read, every year on this day is going to be Isaka Shamsud-Din Art Day. And there were a couple of things that you asked for specifically in your reference to the proclamation and your response. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, the renewal or the revival of the Albino Arts Center and what you have as far as a perspective on the needs of the next generation of artists. So do you want to explain why that's important, or just to share those remarks with this audience?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'm almost bashfully honored. Almost bashfully. You couldn't tell it anyway. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to come together and to talk about and to project into a future that is much more exciting, more enlightening, and with a stronger, positive spirit. We have the ability to do that as artists of every discipline. My particular interest is, as an artist coming up, not really meaning to be an artist. I didn't know anything about being an artist. But the hits that I got that were so positive from the age 8 up, and the challenges, the personal challenges with my artwork really became part of me. Those setting up, in other words, attempting to do artwork constantly in different mediums or different subject matter that I generally was afraid that I couldn't do. And so I would have to, maybe I would go past it for a while and wouldn't mess with it. And then it just kept bugging me, and so I would try. And that's how I ended up drawing horses. I could draw horses, but not just out of my head. I looked at pictures of horses, and I looked at real horses. And so when I was in the second grade, I got a commission of sorts. My second grade teacher was raving about my art, and at that time we did slides were made of glass, and I think they were about 4 by 5 inches or 4 by 4 or something like that. I'm talking about about 1950, maybe around in there. And we were living in Giles Lake after the Vanport Flood. And we lost everything except the little white radio. And at Giles Lake School. But when this commission involved me, drawing, replicating a storybook of our primer, as we used to call them, primer, our second grade textbook. And it was filled with folk tales and, Cinderellas and Three Bears and Jack and Jill and Jack and the Beanstalk. But in drawing all those with colored pencils dipped in water, and I was amazed at how well I could draw them, and if I hadn't had that challenge, if that teacher hadn't asked me to do that, I wouldn't have known that I could do that, to that degree, to that level. And, but What bothered me was the same thing that bothered me at church. The same thing that bothered me on the billboards. The same thing that bothered me in Good Housekeeping. I read everything. Home and Garden, cookbooks with my mother, and so forth. Was the white image. Was Jesus was white. God was white. Mary, and on and on and on. And this storybook, our class book was the same. If I hadn't been replicating, it might not have gone so deep. Because the thought was always there. Why only them? Only white angels? And then somebody got real bold, I think I was probably in around the 8th grade in the Beach Street Church of God in Christ. I think we were there by then. We may have been going to Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church. But anyway, all the pictures of Jesus, all of a sudden somebody got bold and put a little black child in there with him. There still wasn't any other kind of child, and except white children. And it bothered me so much. And then in the 7th grade, we had a class project where we were going to have our last names was going to give us we send off, I think it was Senior Scholastic Magazine or something like that. We send off to this company and they would send back your coat of arms. And that's when I found out I was Irish. But it was so humiliating. It was so humiliating. And I just sunk inside. And I didn't say anything to anybody about it, but for myself, I said, someday, when I know enough about Africa, when I know enough about, who I am, yes. I'm going to change my name. And when I was, after coming back from Arkansas in '66, that's when I changed my name to Nomo, because I had been studying the Dogon intensely of Mali for many years. In fact, I was recruited to teach Black Studies. That was my first experience teaching Black Studies at San Francisco State. And that was from someone who had heard me talking, visiting me in my apartment, and said she was over the Student Association, Mariam Wadi at the time. Her mother was Ruth Wadi, who wrote the book with Samela Lewis, Black Artists on Art. I'm in the 2nd volume, but we were just talking, and I had written a Zulu victory cry across my wall, and I had a mural about Shaka on my wall. And so she asked me to teach it, to come to be a part of the first Black Studies staff at San Francisco State, the San Francisco State College at the time. And so then I got deeper and deeper and deeper, and what I was really looking for was to get answers as to why we were still in such bad shape here. I didn't know about Reconstruction to the degree that I came to know. I didn't know about all the effort by the government, by state governments and federal governments to hold us and to subjugate us further. And that's an awful long answer. I know.
That's the truth. No, that's all good, because it's
Great answer.
And so you're an activist, you were a part of SNCC, you've been in our community your entire life, so you have to deal with white supremacy, patriarchy, the misogyny of violence, and how it, the outcomes. You lost 2 brothers to police violence. They were both murdered by Portland police here. You lost a brother to a white supremacist. He died years after he was harmed by somebody that was a white supremacist, a white nationalist. It took us 30 years to convict somebody of a hate crime, and we know that we have them all the time, and this is America 2019. I'm a community organizer and an activist, and my job is to respond to families who are going through this. And one of the reasons that I got into art was because I needed a medium to kind of use as an advocacy tool to support the entire family, because we don't expect to lose our children when they die in these communities. So the fact that you've been able to entitle not only an opportunity through your art to develop a consciousness so that we could see ourselves in different ways other than just death and the brutal tragedy of being in America as stolen people on stolen land, but also your activism. And so I wanted to ask you about that, about your work in the civil rights, because today is Juneteenth in Washington, D.C. Today we have people like Ta-Nehisi Coates and Danny Glover speaking at the reparations hearings in front of the Senate today for Juneteenth reparations in America. And so with that being said, they wouldn't have the opportunity to speak on that had it not been for organizations and organizers and activists. And when we talk about it being the year 2019 and having access to someone like Isaka, who has had that lived experience, and having an opportunity to not only speak to you about your art, but that intersection of social justice and building social change, how do you feel as a movement, as someone who has been challenged to build consciousness in the community? How do you feel at the point where we are right now, 154 years after the Emancipation Proclamation?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that the best thing that could happen to us here in Portland as a city is that Teresa becomes our next mayor. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that from out of ignorance, or just because I like her, or just because she sponsored this project, and is doing this wonderful, unbelievable work with these young people. And that she really recognizes the value of working with people who, from the larger community, who are really serious and who can see the value and how much better a city we can be, how much better people we can be by having a fuller story of how this America came to be, what it is, and the actual understanding that reparations is healthy for this country. This guilt, this inability to accept what we say people who do crimes should accept. They should go to jail, they should pay a price. They should do something to, how can you forgive someone who has not done anything for recompense? And yet we, some people, even some African people, African American, black folks, really don't get it. And why don't they get it? It's because of lack of information. The lack of information. And that's our job. As visual artists, and as I referred to the images that I came up with, the images that, for some of us, it made us want to be lighter skinned. That's why we had bleaching cream that was so popular. When it comes to hair, I stay away from that because a woman can do whatever she wants to do with her hair. I don't have nothing to do with nothing, But we fellas did it too, a lot of us, because we were trying to look more of that accepted look. Yes. But it was negating ourselves, negating the selves that we didn't know. And the reason why we didn't know was we only learned about European peoples all through school. It should be criminal to do like that, because to me it's a form of genocide. I know a lot of people who, if they had more information about those of us who came before and the sometimes miraculous things that they did, even when they couldn't vote. The first person who died in the Revolutionary War struggle against England was Crispus Attucks, a black man. And we could go on and on and on. It's just like someone that you know, or any of us. You don't want to take credit from a righteous person who you know that's the one who did it. You don't want to live with that. Well, this is what America's living with. And I really do believe that that's one of the reasons why America is so murderous, even to each other. It's because it hasn't been cleansed.
Yes, yes.
They've never paid a price, never acknowledged such a horrendous, yeah, I'll say it, Holocaust. Yeah. Some people say only certain people can say Holocaust.
Yeah.
They don't have all the facts. I don't think.
And I was going to say on that note, the fact that you put together this calendar, and I know you could probably put together 3 or 4 more of them with all the notes that you have and all of the different achievements that people in our country that came through the diaspora have gone through and have achieved, even with all of the violence and patriarchy that's been pushed upon us. What brought you to wanting to develop all of that information and experience into a calendar? I know that you were an educator for a lot of your life. You've always been teaching, maybe even your teachers. But what propelled you to decide to catalog it in the way that you did?
Well, really, and this isn't, well, whatever you want to make it to be, it's fine for me. But the Observer, what I'm talking about is the Observer has a calendar every week. And through the years, I've looked at that calendar. It has everything in it from National Be Kind to Ants Day, or, this was, what, Howdy Doody's birthday, or Popeye ate his first can of spinach this day, National Dandelion Day, but almost never anything about African people. And then, about 10 years ago, an artist, if you look up that name, Nelson Stevens, he was a very, very top-notch artist in Chicago and on the East Coast with Afro Cobra, an artist. He and 11 other artists put together a calendar, and he visited me here out of nowhere back when I was recovering after a case study meningitis affair. And he surprised me and visited. He was in Portland, and he came to my place on Knott Street where I lived at the time. And he tried to talk me into going back east, and I just couldn't. I was crippled up at that time and so forth. But he sent me a calendar about 10 years ago. And the calendar was reflections, these artists' reflections and their images. They all had to do with the Bible. They all had to do with the Bible. And for me, I thought it was a waste. I thought it was a waste. I thought they came up short because so many outrageously beautiful images have already been done of the Bible. And these images could have been more personal. They could have been of like something like the images that I had. And that's the kind of work that they were doing. They were aware of that, but however it came about, I said, it's too bad, you know. And then being involved in research, and the more you discover, you know, especially very unusual discoveries, you know, such as George Washington Carver was an artist, a visual, you know, he made his own paint. I got a picture of him standing up next to his easel with a bouquet of flowers that he was painting, you know. And yeah, he was, he couldn't attend the University of Iowa. I think that was where he had a scholarship. I think he was born in Missouri. But anyway, and so, because when he arrived at the school, they realized he was a black man. And so he matriculated to Tuskegee Institute. And I point that out, and as I mentioned this morning, that Hitler tried to be an artist too, but he got turned down from the academy. And if you look him up on the internet, you'll see some of his work, you know. And he mostly did architecture. I don't think he tried to do people. I learned about him in art history. But I mention that because the mind, what Teresa is doing, and Fendi, pardon? Mixana, and the other wonderful people that she has working with her, with these children, that she is exposing them to things that, yes, and Intisar is doing that also with her work, exposing children to the mechanics of government, for instance. At the art museum, maybe you can tell them a little bit about what you're doing. And these are projects that throw the children into situations where normally they would be either intimidated or mystified, or you know, it would be something that, but no, and they're relaxed and they're calm and they can see these people are just like everybody, you know, just they're just regular people, you know.
Grandma shark. Scary. No, well, we do arts programming with children, and I used to work for an accountant for 15 years, so I don't know how to like babble and play. And so I have them organizing things as if they're accountants and business people. And so when we take them on trips, they're wanting to see the process of how this industry works. They're going in, they're like, wow, this is a big building. How do they operate? Nonprofit. Oh, okay, they hustling. And I'm like, whoa, how did you know? So, I mean, we even discuss audits with them. We take them on trips to auditors' offices when they have complaints about things that are happening in their families or in schools. We're advocating for their parents with them. And so they're picking up what's being done because we don't do the work. We don't, you know, like we're not a social service agency. We're just people in the community that organize. But we teach people how to basically manage what's going on with them. And I don't care how old you are. Like I have 2-year-olds, I have 77-year-olds, I have everybody, whatever age and ability. If you come and you want to work with me, we're going to get some work done. And so the children know that I value their time and they value ours. And they actually did this installation for Isaka so that he could be here tonight and see it. And they had been working with him since last year. He showed up to our spring breakout when they were doing stuff this spring, and they're asking questions. They're doing the follow-up. One of the kids was at the museum the other day. I'm telling them all of the footnotes about W.E.B. Du Bois, and he'd been quoting his reference in books because I told them to do the homework before they show up to my art programs because I'm not interested in like just coloring. Like, you can't tell me what was the inspiration behind the design or where we can find the artist's description. And what that's done is it's created an opportunity for us to start cataloging and archiving and preserving. And so when Isaka talks about the science of his art and how he was able to develop his style based on the way that he was entertained by it as a child, or even the way people exploited his work as a child when they were asking him to do like Looney Tunes and cartoons or whatever, we're giving our children their power by exposing them to archives now. And what they're doing is they're liberating their own consciousness by saying, hey, I understand this process, I deny that, I reject that, I select what I want to do. And so they're not conditioned to being excited about any opportunity that comes to them. They're very mindful of the work that's involved, the time, the effort, the research. Like 3-year-olds doing due diligence, calling their accountants.
And they're gobbling up books.
And they learn it from
And they're gobbling up books.
Look at all the information you gave to us, but they're really learning.
You know, and they're bragging, and not actually bragging, they're just saying, you know, I just got through with this book, and that's my favorite, and I'm gonna take this one now, and so forth.
It's the
And,
stuff that we learn. I mean, the space where Isaka made this painting is the Albina Arts Center. And when my mom came there for like our karaoke night, she was like, "We put these floors in here," and I was like, "Wow, your friends already came in and told us that, Mom. I remember this building, like we always lived on this block, so you're not telling me anything new." But the fact that we're back in there. People in that community come to the building and they're saying, "Oh, this is the former," in other words, and we're like, "No, this is the former Albina Arts Center," you know, and we're really literally trying to take it back. We've had conversations with people that have influence, and I think, you know, people already know that I'm always trying to take something back black, that black. So I want to take it back. I'm trying to get somebody to help us do what we can in order to create the library that Isaka needs, because right now his art and his work is in the studio, and I want him to be able to catalog and to identify and to organize that so that he can continue teaching generations for like hundreds of years, the same way we're being taught by artists that they called fine, that exploited artists that came before them. I want to be able to have on the record where Isaka's art has come from and where he wants it to be established in the future. And so we have a couple of meetings that'll be coming up. And for me, an accountant, I just want to go ahead and make sure that it's effective, efficient, that we have partners that are going to add value to his life. And we're hoping that with this launch of this project, this legacy project, people will see the intentionality behind it, the fact that it's a long-term benefit. My whole thought is that Isaka probably has 2 or 3 more volumes of this catalog or this calendar, and if not more. But the cost of doing art, the cost of being an artist that wants to discover different mediums and not having those resources or having to worry about, you know, life and the hindrance of pain and the challenges of age and the issues we deal with, health and sickness and all of those things with art, and just like with me, with activism, I can get sick and almost die, and I'll still be trying to figure out how to get the things done that I want to do. And I don't think that someone who's given us so much deserves to have that be their situation when they're building a legacy project for the community that inspired them and helped them to liberate us. And so I think that the challenge that we all have to come to at this point is to think about what are we going to do to get our community to invest in Isaka Shamsud-Din? What are we going to do to go ahead and restore the murals in our community? What are we going to do to make sure that whatever guidance and narrative that he provides to us to do this work, that it's not a hindrance to him, that we find what it takes, because I understand art from a financial standpoint. I teach my children how to take it, publish it, and then utilize it. If Getty pays $550 for a picture from a protest, my babies are fine artists. They're fine artists. We're not talking about bags, we're talking about big bags, libraries, spaces, preservation, our home. It's one thing to put yourself in the city archives or in the Oregon Historical Society or even to lock it up in a museum, but it's another thing to say that at the end of a generation that we establish opportunities to preserve the work that was meant for us, the work that we can't have any kind of understanding of. Like, we right now live in a time where everything that we have memory of is in digital. We don't have our grandparents' photo albums anymore. We're not putting the names on pictures and putting them in there and talking about which keys is going to go out and get the Polaroid and who is this and all that. So if we're not sharing photos during family time, and a lot of us don't even have family time, but if we're not sharing those photos, if we don't know who those people are, when the generation, when the baby boomers leave us, and none of us are promised tomorrow, I could go before he does or however it works out, but I want to know who people are. I want to be able to identify the papers. I want to know who the people in the photos are. I want to know where those pictures were taken. I want to know what happened to that house over there. Is this place still over here? I was like, that's where my mom was born. Where's that at? You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to know. And there was no one literally documenting our lives and history. You have a couple of stories and oral histories with the Library of Congress. You have a couple of different people getting grants, taking people's history, writing it down, getting awards for it. But our Black community is at a deficit when it comes to having people that do anthropology, history, archiving for us. So we need to get it done by us. And we have one right here. You know, like, he's documented everything. And so my challenge is to make sure that we have a place to bring all of those documents and that we spend time with Isaka so that we can get the guidance and we don't lose that education. We document it and we create more and more educational programming. And we call it his legacy project. We grew up with his art in our communities. He needs a big giant art book and we need all those pages filled up and we need people that know people with money to tell them where to find him so you can go ahead and get this building. 14 North Killingsworth, 8 North Killingsworth, right down the Killingsworth and Williams. And if they don't know we coming for it, y'all better let them know because we coming for it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he said he wants the whole block back. I said reclaim it.
Yes. May I say briefly that Intisar Abioto is working on an important work, and could you just tell everybody what your project is? Just step up for me.
Oh yeah, sure.
She just had a display at the governor's office, and she's been working on these projects for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, I was just yeah, well, I think the things you're saying about the archive and all these things, I've just been doing a lot of research around like Black history and culture here, but also Black artist histories of Isaka Shamsud-Din and Bobby Fowler and like Charlotte Grace Lewis and others in the community who have put the history of this place into their artworks. And it is important because we do need our eyes like looking into the archives and the histories to say what's important, like what needs to be archived, to be shared, and also the importance of actual places for our histories to be kept. I mean, like the Albine Art Center, which is like a living place of history. All the things. It's all important, and I'm so glad for this day for you, and also more. We need more. Yeah.
That article is in the Oregon.
Yes. I have a piece in the Oregon Humanities. It was like a year long research piece. It's called Black Legend, and it's about like the history of Black artists in Oregon. So that came out, and I'm just continuing that research. So yeah.
Beautiful. Get a hold of it.
All right.
Artists United magazine. And also, I want to mention that Elijah Hassan has been working on documentaries of several people here, including myself, and Bobby Folder over here. Bobby, if you come up a little taste of something. Bobby was around